The first bullet shattered Elena Foster's studio window. 3 seconds after she refused to draw the flower, glass burst across her drafting table. A spray of rain swept through the opening, scattering sketches of orchids, ferns, and alpine lilies across the polished floor. Elena dropped behind the table as another shot struck the brick wall where her head had been. Across from her, Dominic Ricci did not move. He remained seated in the antique wooden chair, dressed in a black Italian suit that looked almost severe against the pale botanical prints covering the studio walls. His expression stayed calm as fragments of glass landed across his shoulders. Then his dark eyes lifted toward the rooftop opposite Elena's building. "Down," he said. She was already down. Dominic crossed the room with terrifying precision. He drew a pistol from beneath his jacket, fired once through the broken window, and immediately turned toward Elena. She had never heard a gunshot from inside a room before. It did not sound like the movies. It felt as if the air had punched through her bones. Dominic crouched beside her. "Are you hurt?" His voice was low, controlled. Elena stared at the weapon in his hand, then at the man who had entered her studio 20 minutes earlier claiming to represent a private botanical foundation. No. Another bullet struck the iron window frame. Dominic's body moved before Elena understood what was happening. He covered her with himself, one arm wrapping around her waist as he forced her lower behind the table. His chest pressed against her back. His breath remained steady. Outside, tires screamed on wet pavement. 2 black SUVs raced around the corner below, stopping hard beneath Elena's fire escape. Men in dark coats poured onto the sidewalk. Dominic touched the communication device hidden beneath his collar. "East rooftop. 1 shooter. Take him alive." Elena twisted beneath his arm. "Who are you?" His gaze settled on her. The danger around them seemed to sharpen the hard lines of his face. He was younger than she had first assumed, perhaps 38, but there was something ancient in the way he watched the world. Something disciplined, lonely, and merciless. "You already know my name. I know the name you gave me. It was my real one." Her stomach tightened. Everyone in Chicago knew the Ricci name. People spoke it quietly in courtrooms, restaurants, construction offices, and political fundraisers. Dominic Ricci controlled shipping companies, security firms, hotels, nightclubs, and several businesses no one discussed in public. He had never been convicted of anything. That did not mean he was innocent. Elena looked at the folder lying open beneath the broken glass. Inside was a photograph of the flower he had asked her to paint. 5 pale silver petals, a deep violet center, thin crimson veins spreading outward like cracks in porcelain. The Vesper Lily, one of the rarest plants in North America. Possibly fewer than 50 remained in the wild. "You brought the shooter," Elena whispered. Dominic's jaw tightened. "If I had brought the shooter, Miss Foster, you would not have heard the first bullet." He rose and held out his hand. She did not take it. The faintest flicker of irritation crossed his face, but he did not reach for her again. His men entered the studio seconds later. The first was broad-shouldered and silver-haired. The second carried himself with the rigid alertness of a former soldier. "Roof is clear," the older man said. "Shooter abandoned the rifle. We have cameras pulling vehicles." Dominic looked toward the photograph of the Vesper Lily. "They knew what I requested." Elena stood slowly, keeping the drafting table between them. "What does that mean?" "It means someone was watching this meeting." "Who?" Dominic's gaze moved over the studio walls, the broken window, the scattered drawings, and finally Elena. "That is what I intend to learn." He turned to the silver-haired man. "Take Miss Foster downstairs. I'm not going anywhere with you." Dominic stopped. Rain hissed through the shattered window. Somewhere below, a car alarm wailed across the street. Elena forced herself not to look away. She had spent most of her life being underestimated. Museum directors assumed her soft voice meant she would accept reduced fees. University administrators believed her curvy figure and quiet clothes made her easy to dismiss. Wealthy collectors expected her to paint anything if the check contained enough zeros. They were always surprised when she said no. Dominic Ricci did not look surprised. He looked fascinated. "The shooter may return," he said. "Then I'll call the police. The police will arrive, take photographs, ask questions, and leave you in the same building where someone just tried to kill you. And your solution is what? Abduction? Protection? From the danger that appeared the moment you walked in?" A muscle shifted near his jaw. She had struck something. Good. Dominic stepped closer, leaving the pistol at his side. I commissioned 214 botanical illustrations from you over the last 8 months through 3 universities and a private museum. Elena felt the room tilt. The commissions had saved her studio. They had paid her mother's medical debts, funded a new archival printer, and allowed Elena to reject commercial work that exploited protected species. You were the anonymous donor? Yes. Why? His gaze moved to the Vesper Lily. Because your work is accurate. You could have hired any illustrator. I did. The quiet answer unsettled her. None of them saw plants the way you do. The words should have sounded flattering. Instead, they sounded intimate, possessive, as though he had studied not only her work but the person behind it. Elena folded her arms across herself. I will not paint that flower. I heard you the first time. It is endangered. Detailed illustrations showing its reproductive structures and identifying characteristics could help collectors locate and harvest it. I understand. Then why ask? Dominic's expression closed. That discussion will continue somewhere secure. No. His men waited near the door, watching him as though no one had spoken to him that way in years. Dominic approached until only the drafting table separated them. His eyes dropped briefly to her hands. Elena's fingers were trembling. She hated that he noticed. When he spoke again, his voice had softened without becoming kind. You are afraid of me. I'm afraid of armed men who lie about why they enter my studio. I did not lie. You omitted the part where you run half the criminal economy in Chicago. Closer to a third. Elena stared at him. Dominic's expression remained perfectly serious. She could not decide whether the answer was arrogance or an attempt at humor so dry it had become dangerous. A shadow moved across the opposite rooftop. Dominic's hand closed around Elena's wrist. He pulled her toward him as another shot tore through the room. The bullet struck the hanging lamp above her table. Darkness swallowed the studio. Dominic lifted her into his arms. Elena gasped, one arm circling his neck by instinct. Put me down. No. He carried her through the rear doorway while his men returned fire through the broken window. Elena felt the strength of his arms beneath her knees and back. She felt the measured rhythm of his heartbeat through his shirt. He did not run like a panicked man. He moved like a man who had survived this exact moment many times. And as he carried her into the dark stairwell, one terrible question lodged inside Elena's mind. Had the shooter been trying to kill Dominic? Or had someone fired because Elena refused to paint a flower that was never supposed to remain alive? Dominic's safe house stood on 6 wooded acres north of the city behind stone walls, electronic gates, and enough security cameras to make Elena feel as if she had entered a private military compound. It did not look like one inside. The house was built of pale limestone and dark cedar, with vast windows overlooking a rain-soaked garden. No gold statues, no red velvet, no evidence of the theatrical luxury Elena associated with criminal dynasties. Everything was restrained, precise, quiet, like Dominic himself. He brought her into a library lined with botanical volumes. Elena stopped at the threshold. First editions filled the shelves. Hand-colored florilegiums rested inside climate-controlled glass cases. A 17th-century volume of medicinal plants sat open beneath museum lighting. She moved toward it before remembering she was being held against her will. This is private property, Dominic said behind her. So was my studio. It is still standing. Barely. You are welcome. Elena turned. He had removed his rain-darkened jacket. His white shirt stretched across his shoulders. The sleeves rolled to reveal strong forearms and the edge of a black tattoo near his wrist. There was blood on his cuff. Elena faltered. You were hit. It is not mine. That answer did not help. Dominic crossed to a bar and poured water rather than whiskey. He set the glass in front of her. She did not touch it. The silver-haired man entered. First shooter escaped through the south building. Second was picked up by a dark sedan. Plates were stolen. Cameras? Traffic feed caught the driver. Salerno soldier named Peter Gallo. Dominic's face became unreadable. Elena had heard the Salerno name too. Another family. Another collection of businesses, politicians and bodies no one could officially connect. Dominic dismissed his men and closed the library doors. Victor Salerno, Elena said. You know him? Not personally. His foundation tried to purchase a series from me last year. What series? Endangered species of the Appalachian forests. Dominic went still. Why did you refuse? They wanted precise habitat coordinates included in the catalog. Did they say why? They claimed it was for academic verification. And you did not believe them. I checked their board members. 3 were private collectors accused of buying illegally harvested orchids. Dominic studied her for a long moment. That refusal may have saved several habitats, or delayed their destruction. He turned toward the rain-covered windows. Elena watched the rigid set of his shoulders. You knew Salerno might want the Vesper Lily. Yes, and you brought its photograph into my studio anyway. His eyes met hers in the reflection. I believed the meeting was secure. You were wrong. Yes. The admission came without excuse. That disturbed her more than denial would have. Men like Dominic were supposed to defend every decision. They were supposed to convert mistakes into someone else's failure. Instead, he accepted the blame, as if adding it to a private list. Elena approached the library table. Where was the photograph taken? Black Ridge Forest. Her breath caught. Black Ridge was a protected wilderness area crossing the Kentucky-West Virginia border. Its limestone ravines contained species found nowhere else on Earth. For years, conservation groups had warned that illegal roads, mining runoff, and plant trafficking were destroying the region. The Vesper Lily was declared functionally extinct, Elena said. There hasn't been a confirmed sighting in 11 years. There was one 6 months ago. Who found it? My mother. Elena stared at him. Dominic walked to one of the glass cases and unlocked it. Inside lay a weathered leather field journal. He placed it on the table between them. The first pages contained watercolor sketches of woodland plants. Each was anatomically detailed but unfinished, as if the artist had been interrupted before adding final shadows. Elena turned the pages carefully. The handwriting was elegant, slanted, disciplined. Isabella Ricci. The name appeared beneath a drawing of a trillium. She was a botanist? Elena asked. She trained as one before marrying my father, before becoming part of your family. Dominic heard the judgment in her voice. My mother spent 20 years quietly funding conservation projects. When my father died, she expanded them. Elena reached the final pages. There it was, the Vesper Lily, not fully painted. Only the stem, leaves, and outline of 3 petals had been completed. Beside the drawing was a series of numbers and abbreviated Latin terms. Coordinates? Elena whispered. Partly. My mother used botanical annotations to encrypt information. Information about what? Dominic rested both hands on the table. Illegal collectors, buyers, shipping routes, government officials who protected them. Elena looked from the journal to him. You want me to finish her work? I want you to identify what she encoded. You asked me to paint the flower. I needed to know whether you would refuse. The realization struck with humiliating force. The commission had been a test. The hundreds of illustrations, the anonymous funding, the mysterious request. You manipulated me. I evaluated you. That is a polished word for the same thing. Dominic's gaze did not waver. If you had agreed to paint the Vesper Lily without hesitation, I would have paid you and ended contact. But because I refused, I knew you could be trusted. Elena stepped away from the table. You had no right. No. Again, the simple admission. No defense. No apology. Just truth delivered like a blade. She hated that a part of her respected it. What happened to your mother? For the first time, Dominic looked away. She died in a car accident 4 months after finding the flower. Elena glanced at the coded pages. You don't believe it was an accident? No. And Victor Salerno? He sent white lilies to her funeral. The rain pressed harder against the windows. Elena felt the threat inside that gesture. Not condolence. Mockery. Ownership. She closed the journal. I can help decode the botanical references. I will not paint the flower, and I will not provide its location. Dominic leaned closer. You are in no position to negotiate. Elena's fear rose, but she held his stare. Then find another illustrator. I already told you. I did. Find another botanist. I did. Then why am I here? His eyes dropped to her mouth for one brief, dangerous second. Because none of them told me no. Silence stretched between them. Elena's pulse moved too quickly. Dominic straightened. You will remain here tonight. Absolutely not. Salerno knows your face, your address, and your connection to the flower. He knows because of you. Yes. His voice lowered. And that makes your safety my responsibility. I am not one of your businesses. No. His gaze moved over her slowly. Not crudely, but with an intensity that made her feel more exposed than touch would have. You are not. He left the library before she could answer. Elena tried to escape at 2 a.m. Not because she believed she could outrun Dominic's security. She needed to know whether the doors were locked. The guest suite opened onto a second-floor gallery overlooking the central hall. Elena moved silently past dark paintings and sculpted stone columns, following the faint green glow of an exit sign. She reached the staircase. Your shoes are in your hand. Dominic's voice emerged from the darkness below. Elena Foster. He sat alone near the unlit fireplace, still wearing his white shirt and dark trousers. A glass of untouched bourbon rested beside him. You were waiting for me? I was working. In the dark? It discourages interruption. She descended the staircase, refusing to retreat. You said I was protected here, not imprisoned. You may leave. Elena stopped. That easily? No. He rose. Moonlight crossed the hall, outlining his broad shoulders. If you walk through that door, 4 vehicles will follow you. 2 men will enter your apartment before you do. Every package, phone call, and visitor will be monitored. That is not freedom. It is survival. Your version of survival sounds a lot like captivity. Dominic approached slowly. And your version sounds like pretending courage makes you bulletproof. Elena tightened her grip on her shoes. I had a life before you entered it. I know. Something in the answer disturbed her. How much do you know? He said nothing. Her skin prickled. You investigated me. I investigate everyone near me. How near am I? The question escaped before she could stop it. Dominic's gaze sharpened. Too near. For one suspended moment, neither moved. Elena became painfully aware of the thin robe tied over her nightclothes, of her bare feet against the cold floor, of the way Dominic's eyes deliberately remained on her face. He reached toward her. Her breath caught. His fingers stopped inches from her cheek. Then he removed a tiny shard of glass caught in her hair. He held it between his fingers. You missed one. The touch never came. The absence of it felt more intimate than contact. Elena stepped back. Why did you commission my work specifically? I told you. No. You told me I was accurate. There are dozens of respected botanical illustrators. None of them paint damage. She frowned. Dominic looked toward the dark windows. Most botanical plates present perfect specimens. Every leaf symmetrical, every petal untouched. Your drawings include torn edges, fungal marks, insect bites, scars from weather. Plants don't survive by being perfect. No. His voice was quieter now. They survive by adapting to what tried to destroy them. Elena studied his face. The controlled expression. The scars almost hidden near his temple. The loneliness built into the architecture of the house. You saw yourself in my drawings. His eyes returned to hers. That had been too direct. Too personal. The temperature in the room seemed to change. Dominic closed the distance between them until Elena had to tilt her head to meet his gaze. Do not make the mistake of believing you understand me. Do not make the mistake of showing me pieces of yourself and expecting me not to notice. A dangerous stillness entered his expression. Then a phone vibrated in his pocket. The moment broke. Dominic answered. His gaze hardened as he listened. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. I want the site sealed. No local police until our team arrives. He ended the call. What happened? Elena asked. A conservation station in Black Ridge burned tonight. Her stomach dropped. Was anyone inside? One ranger is missing. The flower? We do not know. Dominic picked up his jacket. Elena followed him. I'm coming. No. I know the species, the region, and your mother's notes. No. You need me. His hand closed around the banister. Elena sensed the force behind his restraint. I will not take you into a forest where Salerno has armed men. You brought the danger into my studio. You don't get to exclude me from the truth. Dominic turned. When people stand near me, they become leverage. I already am. His expression changed. Not because she had surprised him, because she had confirmed what he feared. Elena walked past him toward the entrance. Get me a court. They flew south before dawn in Dominic's private jet. Elena sat across from him as Chicago disappeared beneath cloud. Two armed men occupied the forward cabin. The silver-haired lieutenant, Gabriel Moretti, reviewed satellite maps on a tablet. The younger security chief, Luca, spoke quietly into an encrypted phone. Dominic said almost nothing. He spent the flight reading his mother's journal. Elena watched his thumb move once across the edge of an unfinished flower. That small gesture revealed more grief than tears would have. She looked away before he caught her. Black Ridge greeted them with cold rain and low clouds wrapped around the mountains. A convoy of black SUVs carried them along narrow roads cut between steep slopes. The deeper they traveled, the fewer houses appeared. At the burned conservation station, smoke still rose from blackened beams. Firefighters moved through the wreckage. Federal wildlife agents had not yet arrived. Dominic stepped from the vehicle, and the entire atmosphere shifted. Men who had been shouting lowered their voices. A county official hurried forward, pale and nervous. Elena climbed out behind him. The official stared at her. Dominic noticed. She stays with me. 4 words. No raised voice. No visible threat. The man immediately nodded. Elena hated the thrill that moved through her. Dominic did not protect her by asking permission. He altered the shape of the room until danger had nowhere to stand. They found the missing ranger 50 yards behind the station. Alive, barely. He had crawled into a drainage ditch with a gunshot wound in his side. Elena knelt beside him while Dominic's medic applied pressure. The ranger's mud-covered hand caught her sleeve. They took the boxes. What boxes? Elena asked. His specimens. From the forest? He nodded weakly. Silver flowers. Dominic crouched beside them. How many men? 6. Maybe 8. They had logging trucks. Where did they go? Old Miller Road. The ranger's eyes found Elena's. They had pictures of you. A chill passed through her. What kind of pictures? Your studio. Your apartment. You getting coffee. Dominic became completely still. Elena had seen anger before. Loud anger. Careless anger. Dominic's was different. It removed emotion from his face until only intention remained. Get him to the hospital, he ordered. As the medic team lifted the ranger, Elena rose. Dominic turned to Luca. I want every camera between Chicago and Black Ridge reviewed. Find who photographed her. Elena gripped his arm. Dominic. He looked down at her hand. She released him. We need to find the plants before they leave the region. You are going to the safe house. No. His eyes darkened. Elena, do not use my name like an order. Gabriel and Luca became deeply interested in the vehicles. Dominic stepped closer. This is not your studio. There are armed men in those mountains, and they are destroying one of the rarest species on the continent. I do not care about the flower more than your life. The declaration struck her silent. Dominic appeared to realize what he had admitted. His face closed. Elena lowered her voice. Your mother cared. Pain flashed behind his eyes. That concern killed her. Then prove it meant something. She watched the words reach him. Not as a challenge. As a wound. Rain collected in his dark hair. Dominic looked toward the burned station, the injured ranger, and the forest rising beyond them. Then he removed his coat and placed it around Elena's shoulders. You do exactly what I say. That depends on what you say. His mouth tightened. Stay where I can see you. Elena pulled the coat closed around herself. That I can do. The abandoned road wound into a remote valley where illegal logging had carved red wounds through the mountainside. Dominic's vehicles stopped behind a ridge. Through binoculars, Luca identified 2 trucks near an old mining warehouse. Men loaded wooden crates into refrigerated trailers. Elena lay beside Dominic beneath dripping pine branches. His body shielded hers from the wind. She could smell rain, cedar, and the faint smoke clinging to his shirt. Luca handed her the binoculars. She focused on an open crate. Inside, protected by moss and plastic tubes, were dozens of uprooted Vesper lilies. Her heart broke. They took mature plants, she whispered. Most will die within days. Dominic's gaze stayed on the warehouse. What do they need to survive? Stable limestone soil, fungal partners around the roots, the right humidity. You cannot simply move them into pots. Can they be replanted? Some, perhaps. Then we take the trucks intact. Elena lowered the binoculars. There are armed men down there. Dominic looked at her. There will be fewer shortly. He signaled to his team. Men spread through the trees. Elena caught his sleeve before he stood. Do not kill them unless you have to. Dominic's expression sharpened. They burned a conservation station, shot a ranger, and tried to kill you. I'm not asking you to forgive them. You are asking me to leave threats alive. I'm asking you not to turn protection into revenge. Rain traced the hard plane of his cheek. You believe there is a difference? Yes. His gaze moved over her face. Then you have lived a cleaner life than I have. No. I've simply spent mine preserving what can still be saved. Something shifted between them. Dominic reached toward her cheek. Again. He stopped before touching. His fingers curled into his palm. Stay behind the ridge. Then he disappeared into the forest. The operation lasted less than 4 minutes. A vehicle exploded near the warehouse entrance, not from a bomb, Elena later realized, but from a precisely fired shot into an abandoned fuel drum designed to draw attention. Dominic's men descended from both sides. Gunfire cracked through the valley. Elena remained behind the ridge for exactly 43 seconds. Then she saw one of Salerno's men climb into the first truck. He started the engine. The trailer carrying the flowers lurched toward the road. Elena ran. She slid down the muddy slope, ignoring Luca shouting behind her. The truck accelerated toward a narrow bridge over a flooded creek. If it crossed, it would reach the highway. Elena grabbed the metal ladder attached to the trailer. Her boots slipped. For one terrifying second, she hung above the spinning rear wheels. Then a black SUV surged alongside the truck. Dominic leaned from the passenger window. His face transformed when he saw her. Not anger, fear. Pure, violent fear. He climbed onto the SUV's running board as the vehicles raced side by side. Elena, I can reach the emergency brake. Do not move. The bridge is damaged. I said do not move. The truck swerved. The trailer slammed against the SUV. Dominic jumped. His body struck the ladder above Elena. One arm locked around the metal rung while the other wrapped around her waist. She clung to him as sparks tore from the vehicles. You were supposed to stay behind the ridge, he said through clenched teeth. You were supposed to take the truck intact. Even then, a disbelieving fury entered his eyes. He climbed upward with Elena held against him. At the top of the trailer, rain struck them in freezing sheets. The truck approached the bridge. Dominic handed Elena to Luca, who had climbed through the SUV's sunroof. Then Dominic moved along the trailer roof toward the cab. The driver fired through the rear window. Dominic dropped flat. Elena screamed his name. He rose again, reached the cab, and drove his elbow through the side window. The truck swerved wildly as he dragged the driver halfway out. The front tires struck the broken edge of the bridge. Dominic seized the wheel. The truck stopped with half the cab suspended above the flooded creek. Silence followed. Then the trailer shifted. Metal groaned. Elena jumped from the SUV before anyone could stop her. Dominic climbed from the tilted cab. She reached him near the bridge rail. You could have died. His wet hair fell across his forehead. Blood marked one knuckle. So could you. I was trying to save the flowers. I was trying to save you. His voice broke through his control. Elena stopped breathing. Dominic gripped her shoulders. For the first time in years, I forgot how to think. I saw you hanging from that truck and every plan disappeared. Rain streamed over both of them. His hands tightened. I cannot protect you from a danger you insist on running toward. And I cannot become someone who watches living things disappear because she is afraid. Dominic stared at her. Then he pulled her against his chest. The embrace was not gentle. It was desperate, furious, almost punishing in its force. Elena felt his breath against her hair. His heartbeat hammered beneath her cheek. After a moment, his grip changed. One hand spread across her back. The other cradled the base of her skull. He held her as though the bridge, the guns, and the entire mountain might try to take her away. When he finally released her, his face had become cold again. But the truth was already between them. Dominic Ricci had been afraid of losing her, and that frightened Elena more than the gunfire had. The rescued flowers were transferred to a hidden greenhouse owned by a university. Dominic quietly funded. For 3 days, Elena worked with botanists to stabilize the roots. Dominic remained nearby. Always. He took calls from Chicago in the corridor. He met armed men in the parking lot. He slept, when he slept at all, in a chair outside the greenhouse. Elena discovered him there on the third morning. His head rested against the wall, his eyes closed. A bruise darkened one cheek where the truck driver had struck him. Without the suit jacket and controlled expression, he looked younger, tired, human. She draped a blanket over him. His hand shot out and caught her wrist. Elena gasped. Dominic opened his eyes. The instant he recognized her, his grip loosened. You move quietly. You sleep dangerously. I do not usually sleep. That is not the impressive statement you think it is. He released her wrist. Elena sat in the chair opposite him. Through the glass wall, humidifiers released mist over rows of rescued plants. 7 are stable, she said. 12 may recover. The rest are unlikely to survive. Dominic looked through the glass. Salerno will replace them with money. He cannot replace extinction. No. But he believes enough money can make loss belong to someone else. Elena watched him. You know him well. Our fathers worked together. Were you friends? No. Enemies. Not then. Dominic leaned forward, forearms on his knees. When I was 23, Victor visited our house often. He was charming with my mother, interested in her conservation work. He was studying her. Yes. Did she discover his trafficking network? She found shipping records connected to our ports. Elena's chest tightened. Your ports. My father's then. Mine now. So the Ricci organization helped move endangered plants. Dominic's silence confirmed it. She stood. You knew. I learned after her death. And you kept controlling the ports to identify every buyer, broker, and official involved. While shipments continued, some. The word landed like a slap. Elena stepped away. How many species were taken while you gathered evidence? I do not know. How convenient. His eyes hardened. Do not confuse strategy with indifference. And do not confuse guilt with conservation. Dominic rose. The corridor suddenly felt too narrow. You believe I should have closed every route the moment I found it? Yes. Then Salerno would have moved the operation through another port. I would have lost the network. But you would have stopped being part of it. I was never part of it. You profited from the companies carrying those shipments. The accusation hung between them. Dominic's face became still. Elena saw that she had found the truth he hated most. Not that his family had participated, that he could not separate himself from the structure that enabled it. You tested my principles, she said quietly. Did you ever test your own? He looked at her for a long time. Then he walked away. He did not return that day. At sunset, Elena received a message from an unknown number. A photograph appeared on her screen. Her younger sister, Maya, leaving the elementary school where she taught. Below it was a single sentence. Finish the flower, or she becomes the last specimen. Elena's blood turned cold. She called Maya. No answer. She called again. Voicemail. Elena ran from the greenhouse. Dominic's security team blocked the exit. Move. Mr. Ricci ordered. My sister is in danger. The men exchanged a glance. Elena held up the phone. Within 30 seconds, Dominic called. Where is Maya? His voice was controlled, but she heard movement around him. I don't know. She isn't answering. My men are at her school. You had men watching her? I had men watching everyone connected to you. The violation should have enraged Elena. Instead, relief nearly broke her knees. A second voice spoke in the background. Dominic returned. She left school 20 minutes ago with a colleague. My car is following. Is she safe? For now. Elena pressed a hand to the wall. What does Salerno want? The completed illustration. The coded features in my mother's journal must identify something beyond the habitat. Then give it to him. No. My sister. He will kill her whether we comply or not. You do not know that. I know Victor. His voice lowered. And I know what men like him do when they discover the person you cannot bear to lose. Elena closed her eyes. What are you saying? A pause. When Dominic answered, his voice had changed. He sent me a second photograph. Her heart stopped. Of whom? You. The corridor became silent around her. Dominic continued. It was taken 2 years ago. You were leaving a museum exhibition in Boston. 2 years? Salerno knew about you before I commissioned your work. Elena struggled to breathe. Why? I do not know. A memory surfaced. The exhibition had featured historical botanical plates donated by private collectors. Elena had spent weeks authenticating them. One plate had seemed wrong, a supposedly 19th century drawing of the Vesper Lily. She had reported it as a forgery. The museum quietly removed it. Dominic. What? I saw the flower before. His silence sharpened. Where? At the Boston exhibition. A forged plate, 2 years ago. What was unusual about it? Elena pictured the drawing. The petals were numbered. I thought it was a collector's catalog mark. How many? 5. What numbers? I don't remember. 3. She closed her eyes, forcing the image forward. The pale petals. The thin crimson veins. Tiny handwritten numbers at the edges. 3, 11, 17, 29, 42. Dominic spoke rapidly to someone nearby. What do they mean? Elena asked. Shipping containers. How can you know? They match 5 containers my mother flagged before she died. Elena understood. The illustration was a manifest. Yes. And Salerno thinks I can reconstruct it. Yes. Can we use it to find the next shipment? Another pause. Yes. Then we finish the flower. Elena. Not for him. For us. They returned to Chicago under cover of night. Dominic moved Elena into his penthouse above the Ricci Hotel, a black glass tower overlooking the river. The top floor was surrounded by armed security. Inside, Elena found something worse than guards. Photographs. Hundreds of them. They covered a wall in Dominic's private office. Elena tearing, museums. Elena carrying grocery bags. Elena laughing with Maya outside a restaurant. Elena standing alone beneath autumn trees. Some were surveillance images. Others were enlarged stills from public lectures and university events. At the center hung a photograph of Elena painting in her studio, sunlight across her face. Dominic stopped behind her. She felt his presence before he spoke. You were not supposed to enter this room. Elena turned slowly. How long? His expression gave nothing away. How long have you been watching me? 8 months. There are photographs from 2 years ago. Those came from Salerno's files. And the others? Mine. Her skin felt hot despite the cold room. You had me followed. Yes. Every day? Yes. Why? He closed the office door. At first, to determine why Salerno was interested in you. And later, Dominic said nothing. Elena looked at the wall again. The photographs were not organized like ordinary intelligence files. There were no dates marked beneath most of them. No notes about contacts or routines. Someone had chosen moments. The way she smiled at a flower vendor. The way she bent to pet a dog. The way she stood under an awning during rain. Not surveillance. Collection. You became obsessed with me. His jaw tightened. That word is imprecise. It looks very precise from here. Dominic approached. I needed to know where you were. Every hour. Yes. Whether I was safe? Yes. Whether I was with someone? Silence. Elena turned to him fully. Were you jealous? His face hardened. I had no claim on you. That is not an answer. No. Dominic. Yes. The word came like a confession dragged across broken glass. Yes. I was jealous. Elena's pulse stumbled. Of whom? Every man who made you smile, without first teaching you to fear him. Pain entered the space between them. She should have left. She should have demanded a car, police protection, a locked door between them. Instead, she remained. Why didn't you approach me? Because men like me do not enter lives like yours without ruining them. You entered anyway. I told myself it was for the investigation. And now, he moved close enough that the edge of his shirt brushed her arm. Now I no longer lie to myself. Elena looked up. His restraint was visible in every line of his body. His hands remained at his sides, but his fingers had curled tightly. What do you want? Dominic's eyes lowered to her lips. You. The answer was quiet. Absolute. Not your work. Not the journal. Not what you know. He leaned nearer, his mouth stopping inches from hers. You. Elena's breath trembled. You don't own me. I know. You cannot frighten everyone away from me. I could, but you won't. His Chaza held hers. No. Why? Because you would hate me. And that matters. It is the only thing that matters. The silence became unbearable. Elena lifted her hand and touched the bruise on his cheek. Dominic went completely still. No one touched him unexpectedly. She understood that without asking. His eyes closed for half a second. Then his hand rose to cover hers. Warm, careful. He turned his face into her palm. The tenderness of the gesture nearly undid her. This is not trust, she whispered. No. It is not forgiveness. No. It may be a mistake. Almost certainly. Elena kissed him. For one heartbeat, Dominic did not move. Then his control shattered. His hand slid behind her neck, drawing her closer. The kiss deepened with months of denied hunger, fear, and possession. He kissed her as if he had memorized the possibility and found reality more dangerous. Elena pressed against him. His other hand settled at her waist, strong and reverent over the curve of her body. There was no hesitation in the way he held her. No apology, no judgment, only want. Dominic broke the kiss first. His forehead rested against hers. If I continue, he said roughly, I will not be able to pretend this ends when Salerno does. Elena's fingers tightened in his shirt. Then don't pretend. A knock struck the office door. They separated. Luca entered without waiting, his face grim. We found the shipment. Dominic's expression returned to ice. Where? The Ricci Conservatory. Elena frowned. Dominic did not. But something inside him went silent. What conservatory? She asked. My mother's. The Ricci Conservatory stood on the grounds of Dominic's childhood estate outside Chicago. Isabella Ricci had built it from iron and glass 30 years earlier. After her death, Dominic sealed it. No employees, no visitors, no exceptions. Yet thermal imaging now showed 12 people inside. 3 refrigerated trucks waited behind the building. Salerno had not merely infiltrated Dominic's property. He had chosen the one place guaranteed to draw him into an emotional decision. Elena reconstructed the forged Vesper Lily plate from memory, while Dominic's team prepared. The petal numbers corresponded to containers. The crimson veins formed a map of shipping routes. The violet center contained a symbol Elena finally recognized as a stylized cross-section of a seed pod. Inside Isabella's journal, the same symbol appeared beside one line. The archive is not paper. It is alive. Elena looked up from the drawing. Your mother hid evidence in seeds. Dominic stood across from her in the penthouse war room. Where? The conservatory. Gabriel pulled up old architectural plans. There is a subterranean greenhouse under the east wing. Dominic stared at the screen. My father sealed it after her death. Or claimed he did, Elena said. A terrible possibility entered Dominic's eyes. Your father knew? She asked. He ordered the conservatory closed. That doesn't prove. He also refused to let me investigate her accident. The room became silent. Dominic's phone rang. Victor Salerno's voice emerged through the speaker. You finally opened your mother's journal. Dominic's face emptied of emotion. Victor, I always admired Isabella. Such a principled woman. Principles are beautiful until they become inconvenient. Elena's hands curled. What do you want? Dominic asked. The illustrator, the journal, the reconstructed plate. No. Salerno laughed softly. Still pretending this is negotiation? Your sister is currently entering her apartment, Miss Foster. Your security detail believes the building is clear. Elena's blood froze. On the monitor, Luca pulled up Maya's camera feed. Her sister crossed the lobby alone. Then every screen went black. Elena, Salerno continued, come to the conservatory. Bring the plate, or your sister disappears before Dominic's men reach the elevator. Dominic muted the call. You are not going. Here has Maya. I will retrieve her. From where? His silence answered. They did not know. Elena stepped closer. If I refuse, he kills her. If you go, he takes both of you. Then use me to get close. No. You used me before. His eyes flashed. And I will spend the rest of my life regretting it. This is not about your regret. It is about whether you survive. Elena held up the completed illustration. This is the only thing Salerno wants more than me. Dominic looked at the drawing, then at her. His fear returned, hidden beneath fury. I cannot lose you. The words were barely audible. Elena's heart tightened. You don't get to love me only when I obey you. His gaze struck hers. She had said love. Neither of them moved. Dominic crossed the distance and cupped her face in both hands. I have loved you since before you knew I existed, he said. I loved you badly. From a distance. Through cameras, reports, and excuses, I will not prove it by delivering you to a man who murders everything he cannot own. Elena covered his wrists with her hands. Then prove it by trusting me. His face twisted with the effort of surrender. Finally, he closed his eyes. When he opened them again, he was no longer speaking as a mafia boss. He was speaking as a man about to place his heart inside someone else's hands. Tell me the plan. Elena entered the conservatory alone. Snow had begun falling over the estate, covering the gardens in white. The glass structure glowed against the night like a cathedral made of ice. She wore a dark green dress beneath a wool coat. The completed Vesper Lily illustration was rolled inside a leather case. A microphone no larger than a seed rested beneath her collar. Dominic and his men waited in the surrounding woods. Salerno's guards searched Elena at the entrance. They did not find the tracking filament woven into the leather case. Inside, the conservatory was warm and impossibly beautiful. Moonlight filtered through glass panes. Rare palms rose toward the iron ceiling. Orchids spilled from stone arches. Water moved through narrow channels beneath footbridges. At the center stood Victor Salerno. He was silver-haired, elegant, and smiling. Maya sat bound to a chair beside him. Elena, Maya breathed. I'm here. Salerno took Elena's coat himself. His hand lingered at her shoulder. Somewhere outside, Dominic would be watching through the tiny camera hidden in Elena's brooch. She imagined his control thinning. Salerno smiled. Dominic chose well. He didn't choose me. Men like Dominic believe choosing and possessing are the same thing. He seems to be learning the difference. Salerno's smile faded slightly. Where is the plate? Elena raised the leather case. Let Maya go. When I verify the information. You said exchange. I lead. He gestured toward a table. Elena unrolled the illustration. Salerno leaned over it. For the first time, greed broke through his polished expression. He remembered every number. I remember plants. And people? Especially the ones who destroy them. Salerno laughed. Do you know what one living Vesper Lily is worth to a private collector? No. $4 million. It is worth more alive in the forest. That is the language of people who have never understood rarity. Value exists because access is restricted. No. Price exists because men like you confuse destruction with possession. His eyes chilled. You sound like Isabella. Elena's pulse quickened. You killed her. Salerno looked toward the upper galleries. Dominic is listening, isn't he? Elena said nothing. Good. He moved closer to the brooch. I want him to hear this. Salerno's smile returned. Isabella discovered the seed archive beneath this conservatory. Thousands of specimens, genetic records, documentation of every buyer who funded our expeditions. Our? Elena asked. Salerno looked almost amused. Dominic's father was my partner. In the woods, Dominic heard the truth. Elena knew because the microphone picked up one sharp breath. Antonio Ricci ordered his wife's death. Salerno continued. I arranged it. Maya began crying. Elena kept her eyes on Salerno. And Dominic? His father intended to bring him into the business, but Dominic inherited Isabella's weakness for wounded things. A gunshot sounded outside. Salerno's guards turned toward the glass walls. The lights went out. Darkness covered the conservatory. Elena dropped. Dominic's voice came through her earpiece. Left corridor. Move. She crawled toward Maya as gunfire erupted across the galleries. Glass shattered overhead. Men shouted. Emergency lights flooded the conservatory in deep red. Elena reached her sister and tore at the restraints. Salerno appeared from the darkness. He seized Elena by the hair and dragged her backward. Maya screamed. A blade pressed against Elena's throat. Dominic, Salerno shouted. Show yourself. Gunfire stopped. Dominic stepped onto the central bridge. He wore black from throat to boots, a pistol lowered at his side. Blood marked his shoulder. His gaze found Elena. Everything else disappeared from his face. Salerno pulled her closer. Drop the weapon. Dominic did. The pistol struck stone. Kick it away. He obeyed. Elena had never seen him surrender to anyone. That image would remain with her forever. Dominic Ricci, feared by judges, soldiers, politicians, and killers, standing unarmed beneath red emergency lights because a blade touched her skin. Salerno smiled. Your father would be disgusted. My father died believing I forgave him, Dominic said. I did not. You suspected? I knew he betrayed my mother. I did not know how. Salerno's blade pressed harder. Now you do. Dominic's eyes remained on Elena. Let her go. You destroyed 3 routes, seized my shipments, and turned my buyers against me. Take the ports. Salerno blinked. Dominic continued. Take the hotels, the clubs, the construction contracts, everything south of the river. Elena's heart broke at the calmness in his voice. He meant it. Salerno could hear that too. All for an illustrator? No. Dominic stepped forward. For the woman I love. The confession moved through the glass conservatory like a shockwave. Salerno's expression twisted. Love made your mother weak. No, Elena said. Salerno tightened his grip. She forced the words past the blade. Love made her leave evidence. Dominic's eyes changed. He understood. Elena drove her heel backward into Salerno's knee. At the same instant, she pulled the small metal stylus hidden inside her sleeve and stabbed it into his hand. Salerno shouted. The blade moved away from her throat. Dominic crossed the bridge. He struck Salerno with enough force to send him through a display table. Elena ran to Maya. Then flames exploded across the eastern gallery. One of Salerno's men had ignited the stored fuel near the refrigerated trucks. Fire raced along the conservatory wall. Glass panes burst overhead. Dominic reached Elena as burning beams crashed onto the bridge. He threw himself over her. Shattered glass rained across his back. Elena heard him grunt. Around them, loose botanical plates lifted into the heat, hundreds of Isabella's preserved drawings spinning through the burning air like pale wings. Dominic dragged Elena beneath a stone arch. Maya, Gabriel has here. The archive, Elena gasped. The seeds are below us. The building is coming down. If the archive burns, Salerno wins. I do not care. Your mother cared. Dominic gripped her face. My mother is dead. You are alive. Behind him, Salerno crawled toward the dropped pistol. Elena saw him first. Dominic. Salerno fired. Dominic turned. The bullet struck his side. He staggered but did not fall. A second shot rang out. Salerno collapsed. Maya stood near the entrance, holding the weapon Gabriel had given her with both shaking hands. I teach 4th grade, she said breathlessly. We practice emergencies. Gabriel reached her and pulled her toward the exit. Dominic sank to one knee. Elena caught him. Blood spread beneath his hand. No. It missed anything important. You don't know that. I know where my organs are. Stop talking. He almost smiled. The conservatory groaned above them. Elena pulled his arm over her shoulders. He was too heavy, too injured. Still, they moved. At the eastern wall, flames blocked the main exit. Dominic turned toward a maintenance corridor. The underground greenhouse has a service tunnel. You said it was sealed. My father believed it was. They descended through smoke into the subterranean archive. The room below was cool, dark, and untouched by fire. Thousands of glass vials lined the walls. Seed packets, field journals, photographic negatives, shipping records. At the center grew a single Vesper Lily beneath a narrow shaft of moonlight. Elena stopped. The flower's silver petals seemed almost luminous in the darkness. Dominic leaned heavily against her. My mother brought one home. No, Elena whispered. She preserved one. A steel door stood beyond the archive. They reached it as the ceiling shook. Elena turned the wheel. It would not move. Dominic placed both hands over hers. Together, they forced it open. Cold air rushed through the passage. Behind them, fire reached the archive entrance. Dominic looked back at the shelves. The records. We cannot carry everything. He removed a small drive from one of the catalog stations. Digital copies. You knew? My mother always distrusted paper. Elena carefully lifted the living Vesper Lily from its stone container. Its roots rested inside a removable limestone cradle. Dominic stared at her. You are not carrying that through a burning tunnel. Yes, I am. Elena, you surrendered an empire for me. I am saving one flower for your mother. For once, he did not argue. They entered the tunnel together. Dominic stumbled halfway through. Elena lowered the flower, caught him, and pulled his arm over her shoulders again. You stay with me. You should go ahead. No. The tunnel may collapse. Then it collapses on both of us. His eyes met hers in the darkness. You are impossible. You commissioned me. A weak laugh escaped him. It was the first unguarded laugh Elena had ever heard from Dominic Ricci. They emerged onto the snowy hillside seconds before the conservatory roof collapsed. Glass and flame surged into the night. Elena lowered Dominic into the snow. Emergency vehicles raced across the estate road. Maya ran toward them. Dominic's men spread through the grounds, securing Salerno's surviving guards. Elena knelt beside Dominic, pressing both hands over his wound. Snow landed in his dark hair. His face had gone pale. Stay awake. I am awake. Look at me. I always do. Tears blurred her vision. You are not allowed to die after saying you love me once. His hand lifted slowly. Blood marked his fingers as he touched her cheek. I have said it every day for 8 months. You said it to photographs. They argued less. She laughed through tears. Dominic's eyes softened. Elena. What? The flower. She glanced at the Vesper Lily resting safely in its limestone cradle beside them. It survived. His hand slipped from her cheek. Then his eyes closed. Dominic remained in surgery for 5 hours. Elena sat outside the operating room with dried blood on her dress and a living endangered flower beneath a medical grow light beside her. Maya slept against her shoulder. Gabriel stood near the window, speaking quietly with federal agents. The evidence recovered from Isabella's archive implicated collectors, customs officers, politicians, shipping executives, and members of both criminal families. Victor Salerno had survived Maya's shot. He would spend the rest of his life under armed guard, facing federal charges and enemies who no longer needed his money. None of it mattered, while the operating room doors remained closed. At dawn, the surgeon emerged. Dominic had lost blood. The bullet had damaged his liver but missed major vessels. He would survive. Elena closed her eyes. For the first time all night, she allowed herself to break. Dominic awakened to find Elena drawing. She sat beside his hospital bed with a sketchbook balanced on her lap. Morning sunlight filled the private room. 2 guards stood outside the glass doors. The rescued Vesper Lily rested near the window beneath a climate-controlled enclosure. Dominic watched Elena's pencil move. You refused. She looked up. His voice was weak. His eyes were not. I refused to make a scientific plate identifying its location and reproductive structure. He glanced toward the sketchbook. And that? Elena turned it around. She had drawn the flower growing from blackened earth. Behind it stood the faint outline of a ruined glass conservatory. No coordinates. No anatomical labels. No markings collectors could exploit. Only survival. It is a portrait, she said. Not a map. Dominic studied the drawing. My mother would have liked it. I hope so. His gaze returned to Elena. You stayed. Your security wouldn't let me leave. I will fire them. I threatened to stab Gabriel with a pen. I will promote him. She smiled. Dominic looked at that smile as if he had waited years to see it directed at him. Then his expression grew serious. The ports will be transferred to a conservation trust. Elena blinked. What? All shipping companies connected to the trafficking routes. Independent auditors will control them. You're giving them away? I am removing myself from the trade. Because I asked? Because you were right. The words cost him something. Elena set aside the sketchbook. What about your other businesses? The legitimate ones remain. And the criminal ones? His eyes stayed on hers. Some structures cannot disappear in a day. That sounds evasive. It is honest. She appreciated that more. Dominic reached for her hand. His movements were slow from pain. Elena let him take it. I cannot promise to become a man without darkness, he said. I can promise never to hide that darkness from you. And the violence? If someone threatens you. Dominic. His mouth tightened. I am working on nuance. Elena laughed softly. He lifted her hand to his lips. The kiss against her fingers was gentle, almost ceremonial. I do not need you to become harmless, she said. I need you to understand that protecting me does not mean controlling me. I understand. You will struggle with it. Yes. You will annoy me. Frequently. And no more hidden photographs. A pause. Dominic. No more new hidden photographs. She narrowed her eyes. He looked almost innocent. which on him was deeply suspicious. What happens to the old ones? They are evidence. Of what? His thumb moved over her knuckles. My long history of poor judgment. Elena leaned closer. You are going to destroy them. Most of them. All of them. One is framed. Dominic. It is an excellent photograph. She tried to pull her hand away. He held on, careful not to strain his wound. For the first time, the feared Mafia Boss smiled fully. Not the cold curve he used during negotiations. Not the dangerous amusement he showed before violence. A real smile. Varm. Rare. Elena stopped fighting him. She bent and kissed him instead. 1 year later, Black Ridge Forest expanded by 40,000 protected acres. The evidence from Isabella Ricci's archive dismantled an international trafficking network operating across 5 countries. Museums returned illegally acquired specimens. Private collections were seized. Several government officials resigned before federal agents could arrest them. The Ricci Botanical Conservation Foundation opened research stations throughout the Appalachian region. Elena became its artistic director under one condition. Dominic could not interfere with scientific decisions. He agreed, then attempted to interfere with security decisions, travel schedules, donor meetings, field expeditions, and the number of hours Elena worked without eating. Their arguments became legendary among the foundation staff. So did the way Dominic always appeared beside her before the disagreement ended, holding coffee in one hand and an apology he rarely phrased correctly in the other. The restored Ricci Conservatory reopened on a bright autumn morning. Its new glass walls rose above public gardens filled with native plants. Children moved through educational exhibits. University students studied Isabella's journals. Rangers gave tours explaining how illegal plant trafficking threatened entire ecosystems. At the center of the main gallery hung Elena's portrait of the Vesper Lily. No map, no coordinates, only a silver flower rising from burned earth. Dominic stood beneath it in a tailored black suit. He still frightened politicians. He still controlled rooms without raising his voice. He still carried violence inside him like a locked weapon, but he no longer mistook fear for loyalty or possession for love. Elena crossed the gallery toward him in a deep green dress, her curves framed elegantly by the soft fabric. She carried a leather portfolio beneath one arm. Dominic's eyes followed her the entire way. They always did. You are staring, she said. I am observing. That is what you called surveillance. I have improved. I now observe openly. She handed him the portfolio. Inside was a new botanical illustration. 2 plants grew side by side. One was the Vesper Lily. The other was a dark, thorned vine curling protectively around its stem without crushing it. Dominic studied the drawing. What species is this? The vine is imaginary. I thought you only painted real plants. I made an exception. His gaze lifted. For me? For a difficult man who finally learned that protection requires space. Dominic closed the portfolio. Around them, visitors filled the conservatory with life. Maya led a group of school children through the pollination exhibit. Gabriel spoke with park rangers near the entrance. Scientists worked behind glass in the restored seed archive. The place where Isabella's life had ended had become a sanctuary. Dominic took Elena's hand. His wedding ring caught the sunlight. You drew the flower, he said. I drew what it became. And the vine? Elena smiled. It survived too. He drew her closer. Even after a year, that movement still carried the quiet command that had once frightened her. Now she heard the question beneath it. She stepped willingly into his arms. Dominic touched his forehead to hers. I have another commission. No endangered species. Agreed. No secret tests. Agreed. No anonymous payments. He hesitated. Dominic. Agreed. What do you want painted? His hand settled at her waist. A garden. That sounds ordinary. It will contain every flower my mother documented. Elena's expression softened. And where will this garden be? Behind the house. Your house? Our house. The conservatory noise faded around them. Elena searched his face. The man who once watched her through hidden cameras now stood before her without armor, asking rather than taking. Is that a proposal? She whispered. No. Dominic reached into his pocket. He lowered himself onto one knee beneath the portrait of the flower that had brought them together. The entire conservatory fell silent. Elena stared down at him. The feared Mafia Boss of Chicago held a simple antique ring between his fingers. "My mother wore this before she married my father," he said. "She removed it when she discovered what he had become. I kept it because it belonged to the part of her he never controlled." Elena's eyes filled. Dominic looked up at her with no audience in his expression. "No empire, no power, only truth. You taught me that love cannot be collected, purchased, watched, or kept behind glass. It must be protected without being imprisoned." His voice lowered. "I cannot promise you a life without danger. I can promise that every dangerous part of me will stand between you and anyone who tries to take your freedom." Elena laughed softly through tears. "That is still a very Dominic promise. It is the best one I have." She held out her hand. "Then ask me." His fingers tightened around the ring. "Elena Foster, will you build a life with me?" "Yes." The word had barely left her mouth before Dominic rose and pulled her into his arms. Applause erupted around them. Maya cried openly. Gabriel turned away, pretending to inspect the security cameras. Dominic slid the ring onto Elena's finger. Then he kissed her beneath the glass ceiling as autumn sunlight poured across the conservatory. Outside, beyond the gardens and stone walls, the world remained dangerous. There would always be men who believed beauty existed to be owned. There would always be rare things threatened by greed. But inside the restored conservatory, children stood beneath Isabella Ricci's drawings. Scientists preserved seeds for forests not yet born. A silver flower bloomed where fire had once consumed everything. And Dominic Ricci, the man who had commissioned hundreds of flowers but could not obtain the one he demanded, finally understood why Elena had refused him. Some beautiful things survived only when no one was allowed to possess them. So he did not place Elena behind glass. He stood beside her, and together they protected everything powerful men believed they had the right to destroy.